Welcome, welcome. I am very honored today to be bringing you some fun games for teaching phonics, for teaching decoding, for teaching the foundation of becoming a good reader. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dr. Marnie Ginsberg of Reading Simplified, where we streamline reading instruction and accelerate students' reading achievement. And I've brought on a special guest, a fellow reading teacher and a fellow reading activity creator, Clare Wood. Welcome her tonight. She is from Tiny Steps Make Big Strides, which is a fabulous program and site for activities. And she's even going to be sharing some free activities with us tonight. So I know you'll want to stick around. And I'm going to say hi to everyone, and then I'll introduce Clare and let her tell us a little bit about her story. She's coming to us from Perth, Australia. I know we've got some people here. We've got Anna coming from Canberra, Australia, and Tar's in the house, and Jennifer's here. Jennifer says hi, Claire, sorry. And the team is coming from South Africa, and Brenda from Tucson. So we've got two Arizona folks. You guys are taking the lead tonight. Stephanie, welcome. And yeah, Jennifer says, what? Yay, another Aussie. Love you guys. Yeah, we have been making lots of fun connections across the ocean. So Clare has got just some stunning things that I've been ogling on Instagram lately, and I want to share them with you. So it's going to be so exciting to see the cool things that she's going to give us and also share some of her ideas for how she uses these. So Clare is not only a great reading teacher, has a system that is very similar to Reading Simplified. It will resonate with you guys. She's also creative and is a great artist. So that is a fabulous combination for any teacher to have. So I'm really excited to bring her here. We've got Carolyn from New York and Jordan. Oh, Jordan's already asking for your Instagram handle, Clare. So, what's that?
So it is just at Tiny Steps Make Big Strides.
Yeah, let me pull that up. I can tell you this is her website, but also this is the name that you can find her on at Instagram. So that was a good question. Thank you. Heather's here, Lisa, Julie, Michelle. We've got folks from all over. Greg's coming in from the Philippines, and awesome. So thank you for welcoming Clare. And if you think that having some of these fun resources would be fun for some of your colleagues, please share this Facebook Live or tag a friend so that they can get these fabulous freebies and great ideas from Clare. So enough of the introduction. Let me say hi to Clare and ask her to tell us a little bit about who she is and what she's been doing lately with Tiny Steps Make Big Strides. Welcome, Clare.
Oh, thanks for having me, Marnie. So, yeah, I was a classroom teacher, and after much travel, I have set up a literacy clinic in Perth, and I tutor mainly primary school age kids with their reading instruction. And I found that to engage kids who necessarily struggle through either a language disorder or maybe through they just needed some extra exposure, I found games was a really, really great way to encourage them and to motivate them. And so pretty much we run a systematic explicit instruction program, but it's through playful learning.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And when what I also love about Clare's work is that it's systematic explicit phonics, but she emphasizes sounds first, which really resonates with the work we're doing here at Reading Simplified. Let's tune the kids' ears into sounds, and then they match them up to the symbols on the page. Does that fit what your experience is, Clare?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. So from the beginning, if I take a child from the beginning, we pretty much do work on a lot of sounds and a lot of listening games first. So segmenting the word into its phonemes and its syllables, and then working through a systematic program that pretty much does work with yours. So I basically run through the SATPIN sounds first, and then so the SATPIN sounds first, and then we run through to vowel sounds and more complex consonant sounds. And so how we use the games is that we could use pencil and paper, and we do that. But I think to begin with, lots of children really do need lots and lots of exposure, especially if they're struggling. And games is just a really good way to give children lots of exposure, lots of different ways, and it's fun, and they don't realize they're actually learning. So that's pretty much what we do.
And you started, is it true that you do a lot of these games with your own children as well as with your clients? And so you always have a good audience to test the games out with, right?
That's actually true. They are my guinea pigs. My eldest is now 13 and at high school. But yes, my 3 children pretty much have done all the games. They my younger 2 in primary school continue to, because they obviously get their weekly spelling list. I recently did a week on Facebook and Instagram where I showed pretty much the week that we would run through in our family life. And obviously, you know, parenting is really hard work, but I find that when they bring home sheets, that they're not too enthused. You know, they've had a whole day at school, that especially in person now, they're hot, they're tired, they're bothered. They don't necessarily want to sit down, you know, and do a sheet. They just don't, with the best in the world. So I pretty much take what I've done for my own children, and I do it for my clients, is pretty much take their homework and just gamify it, basically, because, you know, as we all know, we all want to do things that are fun, and it can always be fun. I appreciate that. But I find if you just add a little bit of a playful emphasis,
right, they
really tune in, and they really, you know, and then they really care. And especially, I don't know about you, you've probably not got these anymore, but I pretty much have, as you can see, all these are my the cubes that every family has, the preschool blocks that and I pretty much kept them. I'm a bit of a hoarder, and we use them as dice. So I don't pretty much go out and buy anything. We just use those as dice. And as soon as you use dice, pretty much that uncertain reward, kids are just so engaged. You know, it's like any type of game. As soon as you get that uncertain reward and you're not necessarily sure what's going to happen, then it just really motivates and enthuses you.
Yes.
Really. So, and I find that, you know, as soon as cards and dice are involved, that's, you know, it's really good. And as a consequence of them being motivated, they're really willing to, you know, even if they really struggle, they're really willing to read the words. And, you know, and you can be there as, you know, as a coach, as a parent, you can be there as a coach and guide your children through, go through the activity. But it's just far more entertaining for them if it's a games-based approach.
I totally agree. Does this resonate with you, Claire? As a tutor, or what I recommend for Reading Simplified teachers or parents everywhere is, let's teach, you know, with the teacher, whole group, small group, one-on-one. Let's give them the skills that they need, and push them and support them when the teacher's there. But then they need to reinforce and get the practice. So that's where the game can be such a powerful motivator. You know, maybe I work with a kid for 30 minutes and I'm kind of tired them out because I'm pushing them pretty hard. Then I bring out a game and suddenly we start another 30 minutes of energy. Or if I ask the parent to take that home and do that game there, or a Reading Simplified teacher does this game during literacy centers, then it's just an extra practice that's really targeted. You can target it to their particular sound that they're focused on. But then, as you said so well, that actually creates engagement. The uncertainty of just simply rolling a dice. It's so simple, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with more. And there's a body of research all about the uncertain rewards. But I think you're completely right. What tends to happen is we would have a very systematic, explicit approach for maybe 30 minutes of our session. And then we roll into a game. And the game is basically just reinforcement and consolidation of what's gone before. Right. And also, yeah, I completely agree with you about homework in games. I think sending children home with playful activities that the whole family can get involved in is just a win-win. Yeah. Because because it consolidates learning for your older children, and it also brings in your younger children.
You're right. They can, yes.
Have done that in their own classrooms, and they're going to go and do it.
Yeah.
So I think that games are perfect for literacy centres, because obviously as a teacher, you know, you might only be working with one group for explicit instruction in that class. However, your other literacy centres could get a games-based approach where they are reinforcing work that they've already done that previous week or in that week.
Right. So I want to, before we get to a game per se, I want to show some of the beautiful things that Claire has created, because she's creative with ideas, but also creative with her art. And so if you head to her site, make sure you just take a note, because I don't want you to leave her tips right now. Or if you can open up a separate tab, then that's great. But there down at the bottom of the screen, you can see her website where she's offered a lot of lovely freebies. So I wanted to particularly highlight the bookmarks, which are so gorgeous. And I don't have anything quite like this as a resource for teachers here at Reading Simplified. So I thought that would be cool to talk about. So Claire, why don't you just share what these bookmarks are for? What are some ways in which you've used them?
Right, well, those bookmarks, Marnie, are from my reading and spelling toolkit. And I remember, it was ages ago now, that you got in contact with me over the gram, and you asked about giving them away free. And you was actually the first person that did that. And it was funny how that same week that you asked, I was, from my little site anyway, I was pretty much inundated with people saying, oh, these are great, can I have them free? And it just made sense, actually, because, you know, so I created a free copy, pretty much. And then you asked, so this is the F one for egg, but you basically asked then about the American accent. And I've had other people ask about that, because obviously we all speak differently, and pronunciation is really important with teaching reading. So yeah, they are free in the library if you subscribe. But the reason I made them in the first place was because I have lots of parents are really encouraged and really interested in teaching their children to read, but they don't necessarily sometimes understand the whole alternative spellings approach that Phonics gives us. And so the bookmark for me was a really good visual way to show that. And yeah, art is a passion of mine. It's not something I'm trained in. It's just something I like to do. So basically, I've got one here to show you. I'm not sure what you use in the States, but over here in Australia, I use these phonic books. They're my favorite go-to resource to leave with children. And basically, the parents get a bookmark in the book. And it was just a really simple way for me to show the parents 5 minutes after a session. So this is the sound we've been working on. These are the alternative spellings. And then I run the parents through activities they could do with the bookmark. So, because I really think that retrieval practice is something that we don't do enough in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really important strategy. And we can do that at the beginning of a session for a quick warm-up, as in, what did we do yesterday? Or maybe what did we do last week? And it's really good at the end of a session to go on and think, so what did we do in this session? What have we covered today? And so the bookmark was a playful activity that I could give parents, and then they could run through some retrieval practice with their children, working on the sound and the alternative spellings. And when we've done the games, they could then think about, so what words do we know that might have that I sound in it with the IDH? And it was just a quick memory aid, really, for the parent. And then funnily enough, they weren't actually going to go in that reading and spelling toolkit, because they were literally just a quick freebie that, it was just a quick thing that I'd made for parents.
Inspiration.
One of the parents actually said, I think everybody would want some of those. I really like them. And she'd shared them with some of her friends. So it pretty much was. So the ones in the toolkit actually were just divided, because I actually put those into cards sometimes. And And actually, they just didn't fit very well on a piece of paper when I wanted to produce them free. So these ones are literally just.
Oh wait, hold that up. Hold that up. What? Let me show again with a better angle. Okay, yeah, so cute, so gorgeous.
So they are literally just without the lines. All that's different is they've not got any lines.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I have found they work probably better for parents, because parents really do, they really do need, I think, that support. And I think we do need to give our parents far more support in the teaching of reading.
Well said. Louisa Motes and other researchers have done research to find out that even as beginning reading teachers, that we're not very well prepared to do the complex stuff of teaching reading. Just because you're a good reader doesn't make you a good reading teacher. And a lot of us, certainly not all, but many of us haven't been well prepared in our undergraduate preparation. And so if it's hard for us, just imagine, one level beyond that for the parent who's not trained but also busy. So I couldn't agree more. It's super important to give that support. And I think a bookmark is a simple teaching tool. It's an implicit teaching tool. You don't have to say, you don't have a lot of text. They're just going to be, the A sound. Oh, wow, I didn't know it had so many spellings. That's it. And it's intriguing because it's beautiful and there's not a lot of text. So that's just a super smart thing. Are there any other ways in which you use the bookmarks, or should we talk about some of your other games, Claire?
Yeah, well, no, that's pretty much what we do with them. It really is just a memory aid. But I think I know that our kind of say backlash about phonic readers, because people say they're not that interesting. But then I don't think a phonic reader is supposed to be a work of literature. I think it's supposed to be a stepping stone to great works of literature. And I do think, not that I have no monetary incentive or anything, but I do think that phonics books do a great job of inspiring people to read their books. They are the best I've found. There are other ones, and they're all great. It's just, I don't know, I just really like how they work.
Can you show us a couple of inside pages? Because one of my problems with a lot of decodable books is that they put so many words on the page that my students, once they can read that, I'm out of phonics books. I need them at the early stage because we rapidly get them into the code. And
this is level 3 that I've got.
Higher.
Wait there.
Okay, so she's going to find us a dandelion reader. I know these are more popular in Australia. I think that's where they originate.
No, so they're actually from the UK.
Okay.
They're actually in the UK. So this is a level 1 reader, if you can see. Now, I don't think there is a huge amount of words on that page, and the pictures are quite, I like the fact that the pictures are cartoon-like. So yeah, there probably is quite a few words on that page, but I tend to find that once we have done lots of games, so I would never read this reader at the beginning of a session. I feel that the reading comes, or I always do the reading after the game. So we tend to do a systematic, explicit session, like 10-20 minutes.
Right.
Then we will do maybe 5 to 7 minutes of games, depending on how long the sessions are. And then we will do the reading. So I feel like the reading comes at the end of the session, because that is the tricky bit. Putting it all together in the book is the tricky bit, even with a decodable reader. Yeah, totally.
And here at Reading Simplified, we recommend a 3-part lesson plan structure for almost all kids who aren't yet fluent, so that it just takes a burden off the teacher's mind and makes sure that the lesson's pretty comprehensive. We start with rereading for fluency. So that would be rereading a text from yesterday that they've practiced multiple times. And so they get to show their confidence, their engagement, and it moves them towards fluency, automatic sight word recognition. Then we do the word work activities, and then we do the guided oral reading of a new text, like the text example that you put out there that they'd been prepared. Maybe they'd had studied a particular phonics sound, and then now they're going to read that text with the teacher support. And with our approach, we say, let's practice rereading it with some teacher modeling first. And so they build up their confidence and those words become more automatic. So it sounds like a very similar structure.
Yeah, I really love your structure.
Okay.
I think the videos I've seen work so well. And you do yourself have a games-based approach, which it just shines through that the kids are really engaged.
Right. One of our most popular games is Switch It. We've got a lot of folks who, even if they haven't done the whole Ready Simplified approach, they've tested at least Switch It, and that's one of the things that comes back all the time with Switch It. The kids thought it was a game, and they asked, "Can we play more of the game?" And I think it's the most valuable activity I do in my hour, other than reading, and yet. So it's really pushing them cognitively because they have to switch sounds in and out of words. Let's have the word mat turn into mit, and or sit and sat to sad, and all that work is good phonemic processing and also learning the letter sounds, but they think it's fun. And as Jennifer says, Switch It is a class favorite. So Claire, how about you share with us some of your other games that you like to play?
I couldn't agree with you about Switch It. So that is pretty much the word work we do. And it's funny, when I came across your site, we just call it the sound swap game, or the swap it game. So it's funny that we've called it similar things too. So pretty much we always do a word sort. So these were, it's actually on my Instagram account. These were the cards that I did with my own children just recently, and I did have some students pretty much doing the same sound, because in Australia lots of schools do run the same program. So my children at a certain primary school are actually doing pretty much the same as quite a few of my other students.
Ooh, that's exciting to hear.
Groups. So that sort of does work quite well sometimes. They just practice beforehand. So pretty much when we were doing the oi sound a couple of weeks ago, and we did the word sort between the OY oi as in toy and then the OI oi as in boil, we did the word sort, which again the kids think are really is fun, because they're pretty much working with packs of cards that look like this. That, before I made the cards, I was using Post-it notes. So I don't think teachers have to go out, or parents have to go out and spend a fortune. The humble Post-it note, or even I showed stones recently. So we are so lucky to live near the beach, and we picked up some stones the other week at the beach that we then turned into a movable alphabet, which was quite fun, and that's on Instagram too. So pretty much, I think a word sort itself can be a game if you're working with cards or whatever. But then after the word sort, I think it's really important that you explore those words. I don't think it's a case of, let's sort these words now, let's put them away. Because I think lots of people, you don't always know what a word means, especially when you're little. And I think that is something that builds in time. And of course, you can teach vocabulary explicitly. But I do think that an awful lot of vocabulary comes just through your daily life, and it comes through the daily chat. It comes through life exposure, really. So basically what we did was we sorted these cards. So this was an oi, as in OY. This was an oi, as in coin. So we basically sorted them, but they were blank cards. They're always blank cards like this to begin with. So we highlighted the sound, the graphemes, the target sound, which I don't know about your children, but I have a host of children that love highlighters. They are my number one thing. Yeah, always got the highlighters at the ready. Number one thing. So once we'd highlighted them, basically had the dice, which has got basically pink, yellow on it, but to give that uncertain reward, which is just so important. If you think about snakes and ladders, or you think about a game of Uno, it's all about the uncertain reward. It's not about being the best at Uno, it's about the strategy, isn't it? And it's about looking at your cards. And the same with the dice game. You play snakes and ladders, how many times do you get to the top and you're going all the way to the bottom? And dice games are the same, aren't they? So basically this dice has just got miss a go on it and have another go. We basically just threw the dice, and you could pick up, if you landed on red, pink, you could pick up some cards that you had to add to a sentence.
Oh.
And so I say when we were sorting the cards, we always do discuss, are there any words you're not sure about? Are there any words that, those homophone words can be really difficult too. Those words that sound the same, but look different, they are really tricky words too. So basically you throw the dice, add the words to sentences, but if you get 3 miss goes, you're not going to get a lot of cards in your pile. And basically then you count your cards at the end. And it is such a simple activity. It's really not, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but kids just truly engage. As soon as the dice comes out, they want to win. And as we can talk about, let's not be so competitive or whatever. Actually, it's water off a duck's back, isn't it? Kids just want to win. And the thing is, because they're so motivated, they push themselves to decode those words. They really do. And they push themselves that they will know what that means, and I will add it to a sentence. And especially when I've had kids for a couple of terms, they're like, I know I can add 6 words to this sentence. So we always talk about it can be a silly sentence, but it has to make sense.
Okay. So are the OYs in that example, are they all the OYs pink and all the OIs yellow? How does that color coding work?
I should have explained that. Yes. So we highlight all the OYs as yellow. So toy, joyful. And then I always add words like, so joyful and enjoy have the same joy in them. But then we discuss what is the difference between joyful and enjoyed. Because, of course, it's a slight difference. All these words like played, playing, they're a slight difference, aren't they? It's not just play. Right. As soon as you add something to that, as soon as you add to a word, it changes the meaning. So that is I think that is where through games you can have more explicit instruction.
And they'll have more, they'll be more attuned to listen to you probably at that moment. Then as opposed to, let's do our vocabulary lesson of these 10 words. It's the dynamic nature of it. So you're doing the decoding, but then and then the word identification, they'll get better at that too, layering on top of it, becoming more automatic. But then you're layering morphology, etymology, and just vocabulary knowledge. That's really cool. It's a very powerful lesson, much more comprehensive. And yet the whole time they're having fun. And Jordan says if she travels for her job, sometimes she forgets her dice, and she's used a dice app. So that's brilliant. Jordan, can you change the numbers? Can it be more than just a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Could you put in things like, like Claire's done? That's cool. So
that's a really good idea. I'm going to have to look into that now.
I know. It's always learning here. Teachers are always finding new resources with reading. Something that I like to, when possible, it doesn't always happen at literacy centers, but when possible, then another layer would be to also have the students write enjoy. And I know I've seen this on your site, your Instagram site as well. Have them write it, connect it to the sound. So it's another circling back around, linking decoding and encoding, or reading and spelling. And in the context of that game, it's not so hard to get them to write. Whereas if you said, here's 10 words, go ahead and write these, they may be a little less enthused.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more about the writing. So I tend to do the writing after a word sort and after the games. So basically, it's more like you're scaffolding the writing for them. And especially, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of children that just don't want to write. They feel complete failures when they're writing, and they're not. And as well, they're quite perfectionist, so they really want to get it right. And it's a case of, I feel, scaffolding so they feel safe enough to write. And I think that's where playful, engaged learning really does help their confidence and self-esteem, and it pushes them forward to really want to do that. And I think a good thing is using a whiteboard. We use a whiteboard all the time. I think whiteboards are really awesome. But I think leaving a writing activity to maybe a word sort that you've done, and then you can sort the words into the book, is a good activity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about writing.
So share another game with us, Claire.
Oh, okay. Wait there. So pretty much the same. So I always use dice if I can, because just that act of throwing the dice is really important. And I think as well as teachers and as parents too, you tend to find, or I tend to find, it's that 9 million ways to do the same thing.
Right.
You're doing the same thing, just in a slightly different way. So
I call it multiple exposures in multiple contexts. So just how many times you need to see the A sound in all of its spellings? You need to see it a lot, right? Especially certain kids need to see it more than others. And then they need to see it in different contexts. Like you said, the game, the sorting, the book, the word work with the teacher. I love it.
And for some kids, but they're going to see it 1 or 2 times and they've got it, they move on. And that's awesome for that child. But there is an awful lot of children who, what I see is that don't necessarily have a problem, but they just didn't get enough exposure. They just didn't get enough explicit instruction, and they just need to go back and do it time and time again in a playful context so that they're not bored. So here is another game, pretty much the same. This dice was a colored dice. This one, which actually I was using yesterday, has the sound on it. So here's the IR, and then of course we've got have another go, miss a turn. But with miss a turn this time, because it's all about showing kids that this does happen in real life. The turn actually had the UR. So we could discuss the fact that the word turn, it's an word. So basically with this game, it was pretty much the same game after the word sort. So we do the word sort, but this time instead of the cards being colored, we didn't need the cards to be colored. We threw the dice and we picked up the words, we added them to a sentence again, but then once we'd added them to a sentence and once we'd got our stack of cards, then after the game, we then color coded the cards and we then talked through, but then we talked through the fact of like the plant fern is an ER, it's not a UR. But sir, that's a UR. And we then discussed the whole thought pattern behind the alternative spellings and why the alternative spellings are there.
Now, Lisa asked a question about the whiteboard. So can you, for either the sound or the oi example, do you have a whiteboard handy? How might that be folded into your lessons, Claire?
So what we do with so we tend to do the sound swap game that you would do first. So that's switch giving X, there's the switch it, yes. That is, I actually think the switch it is really good. It's really catchy. I like the switch.
It's not important. I'm just trying to transfer to my audience.
I love the switch it. So basically we do the switch it first. And then once we've done the switch it, I basically have a list of words. Now I know word lists get a really bad rap. I do know this, but I think it depends on how you use them. And I think it depends on the actual list itself. Like my lots of children come home from school with lists that are just very random. I think if the list is more if the list is more sorted by a pattern for parents, then so that was obviously I as in flies, and this is I as in drive. So I have that list that we're talking about, and the kids have that list as a homework activity for the parent. And then I would basically run through the list, and it does the switch. Most of them do the switch it so if you look at this list, it's drive, dive, hive, 5, live, glide. So they're basically just switching up one aspect of that word, which is exactly your switch it. And then basically on a whiteboard, I would get the child to be writing the word, and we would discuss through you know, what would you take away, sorry, from drive to get to dive? You know, what do you have to change in dive to get to hive? And then once we go from live to glide, we would then, well, there's two things we've got to switch there. Well, that's further down the list. So they've already had practice with just switching one thing.
Nice.
And then further down the list, well, you know, can we switch two things? And so on the whiteboard, they would then do the writing. And because it's like because it's like a game card, because it's just a strip and there's not that many words on this list, it's really doable for lots of kids.
Yeah. And do you have them say the sounds as you would do it?
Yes, that is. Thank you for prompting me. Yes, I think in all these activities, I should have said, I think it's really important that they are saying all of the sounds and connecting those verbal sounds to the written graphemes that are on either the cards or a sheet of paper or whatever it is you do. And the same definitely with the whiteboard. I think that is imperative. I think it is the number one thing that we can all do is get children listening to their own voices and slowing their own voices. I have an issue with this terrible issue that I speak too quickly. And I think we all need to slow down and we all need to listen. And just that one act alone does really change a lot of children, you know, a lot of their thoughts and their perceptions about reading. Yes. As soon as they can hear what they're saying and they appreciate that it's the sounds coming out of their mouths that are connected to those letters, it is a light bulb moment for a lot of children, especially parents too.
Right. Yeah, Jill says saying the sounds is important. So do you have another game for us, Claire? Or should we?
Well, I do have.
Oh, yay. Okay, let's make this our last game. See if there, and you guys, if there's any questions, make sure you let us know. And then also don't forget, we're going to have a prize at the end. So, but go ahead, back to you, Claire.
Yeah, so this is not on the site at the moment. This is something I've been using all year with my own children, the guinea pigs, and my students. And it literally came about because these cards are awesome. I love them. Made them because actually I was sick of writing on Post-it notes. It's easier, you know, to just be able to print things off. But this game came about because I had a student that said, you know, when we're playing those games, it's not like Uno, is it? And I said, yeah, it's not. Really? Sorry, it's not. And he said to me, he said, well, why is it not like Uno? I don't know about where you are, but Uno's massive where I am. Huge. So I basically made this one boy these Uno cards and thought, you know, is it just him and pretty much everybody loves them. So these are going to go live on the site later today. And if you're a subscriber, you'll actually be getting a free pack of my split digraph cards just because, well, I figure if they work for me, they might work for other people.
Amen.
So these are pretty much the cards that I still use the other cards for explicit instruction, but these are the cards I've switched over to when we use when we're doing a game. So they're different colors. The speech bubble is to prompt the parent and the child to say the word.
Right.
The prompt. And I've discussed with parents endlessly how it's important every time your child puts a card down, they say the word. And if they can't say the word, that is the, you know, that is your prompt to help them decode it. I don't know about you, I find parent coaching is really important, is really an important part of tutoring a child, is coaching the parent too.
Yes. This is harder for the classroom teacher. That's why some of your clever materials, which implicitly teach, are so nice, because the classroom teacher doesn't always have a chance to communicate as regularly as a reading tutor would. So that's another plug for how your materials are just kind of self-teaching, and the games can be self-teaching, and maybe you have a little directions with the games. And in the context of a game, a parent's probably more likely to read the directions and whatnot. So can you show us in that deck, was that like the vowel plus E pattern, or was it just a mixed?
This is a mixed vowel mixed split digraph pack. So this is like E. Now, you know, we had that discussion about the word Swede. That just happens to come up there.
How many Americans here have never heard of a Swede, a turnip or a rutabaga or something like that? I was like, what's a Swede?
I did actually just Google that. And, you know, because of you, I did change it. This is an old pack now, but I did change it to a capital S, as in like the person from Sweden.
Oh, right.
Just me. So yeah, this is O as in hope. And then, but I actually, so it is Uno, but it's Uno with less rules because, so I've got to pick up 2 cards because, you know, when children are struggling, picking up 4 is a lot of pickups. So we're just picking up 2. There's the same coloured card. And with the kids, because obviously children know Uno rules. And so that we've had great discussion about the Uno rules. So as a consequence, I called it discard with the kids. So playing words, you're discarding your cards. But I found that, especially with my older students, my year 5 and 6s, that has gone down a storm because, you know, as soon as you get to year 5, you know, you're at the top of the school and you're the big guy. And I think having something that is engaging them and they play anyway at home is really good. So yeah, like I say, that's going out live on the site today. And I don't know, I just think it's good. I think if we could all be a bit more playful, and it is hard, but if we could all be a bit more playful, I think that we would see a difference in our own children, either in the classroom or at home. I know that it's really hard, and I know that the skills are hard to acquire. There is no doubt. Whether you're riding a bike or learning to read, it is hard to acquire any skill.
Yeah.
But I think it's how you acquire that skill. Yeah. Is it, you know, it's always an uphill struggle, but how are we going up the hill?
And Claire, even though you are seeing that it, you know, you're admitting it is challenging to learn to read, I bet if you use some activities that are similar to what I have stumbled upon, that you get pretty quick results. So do you have any stories about a child or, you know, in general about the outcomes that you typically see so that people who may have a very different approach can kind of grasp the efficacy and the speed of which these approaches, this sound-based phonics systematic approach, which tunes into phonemic awareness, what kind of results are you seeing?
Well, I see that if you go down the speech to print, you know, the phonemic awareness route, and you really get a good foundation of sounds knowledge first, and then you add this to the graphemes, the letters on the page, and you have that explicit discussion that it's 1 to 4 letters, and you don't just throw them in the deep end and just shove all of those alternative spellings on them at once, which I know you do in Simplified. I know you actually just use very popular spellings to begin with, and you work from that basis, which is what I do. I think if you do that cumulative approach, that it's just A to begin with, and then you move on to A, but maybe A is only a few spellings to begin with, and then once you've grasped those, then you can move on to more complicated. I think it's just a win-win for everybody. And I've got to say, my results are pretty much what you're seeing, is that I have lots of children that come to me whose parents are completely devastated that they might have some terrible language disorder. And I can't say that not. Obviously, children do have issues. I appreciate that. But the vast majority of children I see have not got a language issue. More so, normally have just that they needed more exposure. And so, so take this year, for example, I had a year 5 boy who at the beginning of the year was reading more like the beginning of a year 3. So that's a big gap, considering in our system, you go year 6 is the final year of primary school. And this year he's been with an hour, so basically just an hour a week, and a very committed parent behind him who has pretty much done everything that I've asked of them. An hour a week of instruction, and a committed parent that's done all the reading, done all the activities. He has now shown that he's pretty much working at the beginning of a year 6 level. So in
Oh.
just that year, now he is, I'm sure you see it the same. All my students are very bright children, incredibly bright children. And so with that commitment from his parent and that hour of instruction, he has, he's just catapulted himself through.
That's 3 years.
And I think it's pretty much the fact of, quite a lot of the time, it was like light bulb moments. He just didn't know.
Right.
And as soon as you give children that explicit instruction, they literally, they pretty much do, the David Sher's SelfTeaching Hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
They pretty much, I see that a lot in the work I do.
Yes.
Once you give them part of the puzzle, they go off and they realize when they're reading books, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. So what Claire's talking about is Sher's self-teaching hypothesis, and he says that students need sufficient phonemic awareness and phonics knowledge to get the hang of how to attack unfamiliar words. As Jennifer said, they need to crack the code. And once they get that kind of skill set, reading maybe short vowel words and a few long vowel words, then they start to learn more and more about the code on their own. Not that the teacher isn't supporting, but they figure the code out and it starts to kind of snowball and accelerate. But they have to get that foundation. And I think Claire's probably seeing, even on the other side of the world, same thing I have seen as a tutor and working with teachers. Kids don't hear the sounds really well, and so they don't get the code. They haven't cracked the code because they need to hear how sounds and symbols line up. The activities we do develop that ability in them. Other kids may have it naturally. A small proportion of kids have it naturally, but a lot of our kids, more than half, don't have that naturally. So we need to provide that to them to shore up that foundation, so then they can go on the journey of much more self-learning and figuring out the code here and there. This sound, this YR, oh, and syrup, oh, that must be and they just add it to their bank of knowledge. Okay, so we have had a great night, a lot of enthusiasm, people just, giving it up for the ideas of games and all of your fabulous resources. By the way, if you're just tuning in, make sure you head over to Claire's site, Tiny Steps Make Big Strides, and go to her subscribe page so you can snag some of these fabulous freebies, one of which is the set of bookmarks we talked about. And now we're getting to the point where we have a chance to choose a winner from among the hashtag aha comments. So I'm going to call on Greg, who is a Reading Simplified team member, to give up a winner, and we'll see who is going to snag a present from us. So let me just check my comments. Aren't you guys thrilled with what you've heard tonight? Everybody here I know plays a lot of games. Okay, we've got a winner. Thanks, Greg. He says, congrats to Jill Hunt. Awesome, awesome. So Jill, we're going to spin the app. Okay, spin the wheel. Let's see what kind of treat you get. Hey, a decodable book. Now, Jill, if you're in North America, I will actually send you a physical decodable book, but if you're abroad from where I live, I need to send you a digital resource. So check your Facebook Messenger, Jill, to get a decodable book or something else, depending on where you are. So make sure that you connect with Greg so he can give you that treat. And Jordan has something to share with us. I would love to let you guys hear what Jordan is saying. And congrats to Jill. Everybody says congrats to her. Jordan says, hey, she has a tutor that just graduated, tutoring student that just graduated last week. Just as Marnie said, his understanding of reading started to snowball suddenly. And after getting most of his short and long vowels down, things started to click. It's time for him to start learning on his own, which is bittersweet for this tutor. He was one of her favorites. How sweet. Congrats. Everybody give some love to Jordan, right? That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Claire, I am so thankful that you've taken the time to come on our show and share your ideas, and all of your resources are just gorgeous. And I know Claire's just kind of churning it out really fast, you guys. So make sure you stay tuned. Keep an eye on her email and her Instagram. She's got some stuff happening on Facebook too. So, oh, Jordan says I could also use the spin the wheel app. Oh, of course. Yes. What I see, those things I just typed in, you can type those in, you know, just like the sound, an spelling, ERIR, lose a turn. Thanks, Jordan. Duh, I haven't thought of that. That's awesome. So, but back to Claire, is there anything else you want to share with us before we sign off tonight? Or do we cover some good bases?
I think we pretty much covered it. I think definitely what you said. I think the whole making sure that the speech is clear is really important. And something I do get to do with parents, which they've not thought about, is making sure that the sounds are discrete sounds. So quite often we always put different sounds on words, like you know, t is not t, it's t. And I think actually just, you know, I do think being a reading tutor, you do get definitely get a different relationship with parents than you do with teachers. Teaching, I've been in the classroom myself. It is a really difficult job. There's never enough time in the day. You can't possibly get to all those parents all the time. But I think resources like yours are awesome because, you know, they get great training through the web. And I always put instructions with my resources because I think parents and teachers, you know, I think it's really a good idea. Yeah. But I think just making sure those sounds are discrete and not adding extra elements really helps with the segmenting and blending. Yeah. You can't blend a word if there's all sorts of other things going on too, which is all about pronunciation.
Another thing that I wanted to allude to, we don't have time to talk about tonight, but we here at Read and Simplified have a simplified way of getting all these games done in a way that is not overwhelming for the classroom teacher. So if you hear about these games and it's exciting, but you also think, I can't get everybody to be at what they're learning, and it's overwhelming to produce these games and not always have to be switching out your literacy centers and teaching new activities. There is a series of posts I did about this topic, about a streamlined way of doing it, and teachers are finding it pretty successful. So there's a link that I just put up for you if that's interesting to you. So thanks for being here. If you're new to Reading Simplified, we go live most Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with training and some free resources. And I'm, again, very honored to have Clare Wood with us from Tiny Steps Make Big Strides. And so thanks for such warm reception from you all, and good night.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.